So I don't actually know how to properly show you this. I thought it would be cool to do a writing process video. Not to brag about my writing. I just mean, I don't know. Look, I don't write the stories, okay? The characters just tell me what to put on the page. That's my writing process. That is it. I don't write, okay? The characters just tell me what to do. They are just like, this is what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, I mean, if you think that's gonna work out for you, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work out for them. But like all of us as kids need to do, we learn from our mistakes. It would be interesting though if for people to sound off in the comments what your writing process is, because I don't know what it is like for other writers. When I hear writers talk about their writing process, they have things like plans and layouts, and they have the general gist of the idea of what the story is and major plot points. And I feel like I always have none of that. And maybe that's the ADHD and the neurodivergency. Maybe that's what that is. But let me tell you, every time I have gone into a writing project or like NaNoWriMo with an outline and a plan, my character is like, hell nah, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this instead. And what am I going to say? No, obviously not. They can do whatever they want. They're a person. That makes me sound crazy. They're not like an actual literal, you're trying to create a real person on the page. So you kind of just have to let the character do what is authentic to them as a character. Like if I try to make a character do something that is out of character for them, it's very obvious that it's out of character for them, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of American television has issues with this, and I feel like that's part of the reason why I always lose interest in shows, like American television shows. The easiest example I can pull from is The Vampire Diaries. They lost me in season 4 because characters started doing things out of character. And it was very obvious that they were making the characters do specific things because they had certain plot points that they needed to get from A to B, and they were like, in order to get from A to B, we need this character to do this thing. And so they would write the character to do this thing so that they could get from A to B. And I hated that because you ended up with characters in the story that were doing things completely out of character. So it seemed very authentic, and it became very obvious to me that the show was the writers writing these characters. They were no longer real people to me. And I feel like in fiction, when you're writing fiction, you really want to have the characters on the page become these real people so that you forget that they are a character on the page. And I feel like the easiest way you can do that as a writer is to treat your character as a real person. So when you want them to do something, if they as a character don't want to do it, don't make them do it. If they want to do something else, even if as a writer you're like, that's a terrible idea, this is going to lead you down this other path, you don't want to do that, you know what that's great for? That's great for your story. That's great for the conflict in the story, whether it's external or internal. It's really, it makes your character seem so much more authentic when as a reader you feel like the character that you're reading about is doing things that are authentically them. And one of the best, sorry, I'm gonna go grab a book off of my bookshelf. Okay, sorry. That's gonna be fun in post. This book, Getting Over Garrett Delaney by Abby McDonald. I'm sure lots of people had really terrible things to say about this book because it's very cliche. And let me explain. There's one line in here where she asks for coffee black like my heart. I think it's also written in present, like first person present. So it's like, by the time I get home, I take a long hot shower, which is very not common in fiction, and honestly is one of the biggest faux pas in my school. If you wrote in present tense, you better be submitting a masterpiece, because my teachers would rip it apart. Past tense is what you want to be writing books in. And so it breaks stereotypes, or it does the hard thing, right? So first, it's using cliches, not just in the plot, but also the character is using cliches, and it's written in present tense. Abby McDonald, if you ever see this, props to you. Ballsy. I love it. But the thing about the cliches in here is they are so authentic to the actual character. So as you're reading about Sadie, who is the main character, you really get a sense for who she is as a person. So when these cliches come up, you believe it because it's authentically her character. So yeah, I feel like I don't have a lot of books like that where the character feels like they do things super out of character, but I know just this one when I was reading it. My teachers in school would absolutely despise this book because how many cliches there were. And it's not like it's reinventing the wheel of cliches. It's just, if you're going to write a book like this, I better damn well believe that this is what the character is actually like.
Hello. I'm sure you are used to seeing me by now. I am editing Allie in her mushroom overalls. And what I wanted to do after giving you that whole spiel about getting over Garrett Delaney was read to you just the first 1.5 pages of the disclaimer. So just to give you an idea on character voice and how much it plays into the believability of your character and also the personality of your character and just the overall transformation of creating a character. How to characterize your character, one of the things comes through character voice specifically. So, Getting Over Garrett Delaney, Abby McDonald. If you're looking for just a fun summer read, highly recommend. So super cute. And then this isn't the first chapter. This isn't a prologue, okay? This is a disclaimer. Right there. Disclaimer. And the disclaimer is from Sadie, our main character. And then you get this 2 years later, and that's when chapter 1 starts, after 2 years. This is such a great introduction. The character of the book giving the reader a disclaimer. I actually can't say I've ever seen another writer do this. Sorry, I'm probably super hyping this book, and I can only imagine what people have said about this book on Goodreads, but I don't know. I'm autistic. It's my vibe. This book is my vibe. I really loved it. You have to understand. I've been madly, hopelessly, tragically in love with Garrett Delaney for 2 years now. Ever since the fateful day when I looked up from my list of the top 10 couples of all time and saw him sauntering into the local coffee house. And before you say that 14-year-olds aren't capable of real love, well, my couple number 4, Romeo and Juliet, were barely out of junior high when they first met. And nobody doubts the burning force of their passion. But back to Garrett. There he was, all long limbs and faded corduroy pants, his dark blonde hair falling carelessly over cloudy blue eyes. He stood in the doorway, a battered leather satchel slung across his chest, and right then I knew. He was the one I'd been waiting for, sent by the heavens to make my life infinitely better and exquisitely painful all in one fell swoop. Because it was fate. Don't try telling me otherwise. How else can you explain the fact that Totally Wired, usually half full at most, with study fiends and hardcore cappuccino addicts, was packed solid with baby yoga moms and their bawling brats. Meaning that I, Sadie Elizabeth Allen, was sitting next to the only free table in the entire room. Never mind that my BFF Kayla was stuck late at viola practice, so I was waiting there alone. No, the real reason I know that Garrett and I were destined to meet is that out of all the trashy, uncool books I could have brought along, this being the Judith Krantz era of my sexual education, I happened to pick a battered old copy of Pablo Neruda, poetry my dad had given me, so that when Garrett collapsed into the chair beside mine, he looked over and lit up with a crooked half smile that to this day still does strange things to my stomach. 20 love poems, he asked, while I tried not to choke on my cheesecake. The teen boy god was looking at me. The teen boy god was talking to me. Neruda is my favorite. I love his surrealist work. He waited patiently while I took a gulp of my mocha whip and tried to register this new reality where cute boys actually made intelligent conversation with me instead of just shooting spitballs into my hair all through third period bio. Maybe Kayla was right. Maybe high school really would be different. Did you know he wrote only in green ink? I replied at last, reciting the only factoid I knew about Neruda. I took a breath, thanking the gods of false advertising that I was wearing a padded bra, which could maybe, possibly make me look at least 16. He said it was the color of hope. Really? That's cool. He gave me an admiring look. I'm Garrett. I just moved to Sherman. Sadie, I managed. Hi. Sadie, he repeated, and my name, which had always seemed like an old lady name to me, up there with Gertrude and Ada, suddenly sounded glamorous and exotic. So, Sadie, tell me what the hell you do for fun in this town. I don't even know how to properly describe the character voice, but it comes through so strongly. She sounds like a 14-year-old with a crush here, but not just that. The words that she uses, the way that she describes his cloudy blue eyes or his battered leather satchel, even the way that she refers to him, the teen boy god, how she refers to that he's a cute boy who can make intelligent conversation, or like the gods of false advertising, and the way that she says things. Never mind that my BFF Kayla was stuck late at viola practice, so I was waiting there alone. No, the real reason I know. Or when she's describing her top couples, and the way she says, well, my couple number 4, Romeo and Juliet, were barely out of junior high when they first met, and nobody doubts the burning force of their passion. Her character voice is so strong. It jumps off the page. It makes her sound real. And voice is something that is hard usually at first. I know in school, my teachers very often spoke to me about how I understood the technical aspects of writing, but what I really needed to do was find my voice. Find my voice as an author. And that's one thing that you have to learn how to do with your characters as well, is you need to find their voice, because once you find their voice, it will become very loud to you, and you will almost, and again, I don't know how it is for other writers, I just know how it is for me. Because when I'm writing and I'm in the zone of writing and I am writing a specific character, I get their voice in my head. Kind of like how if you're watching a TV show in a different accent, like if I watch a lot of Bluey or I watch a lot of British television, my internal monologue in my head will turn to that accent. I know not everybody has an internal monologue. That's the best way that I can describe it though. So for me, when I'm writing, that voice, that internal monologue will develop the cadence and the speech patterns of my character. So when I'm writing, it's so much easier for me to write that character. It also makes it harder to switch in between main characters sometimes. But yeah, just the character voice in here is one of the reasons why it really sells Sadie as the character that she is. And I am going to screen record so that I can show you some more examples, like different examples of things that you want to pay attention to in character creation specifically. There we go. Now we're screen recording. So I took one passage from the first book in my series, The Becoming, and then I took another one from one of the characters' backstories, just as further examples of characterization and description. In this scene, it's the first time we're seeing Karina through the eyes of Dawson. So previously, in their first interaction, it was the first time they met. Dawson was in the middle of a very large and aggressive argument with another character. She was literally throwing things at him through the doorway into the hallway. It was a mess. And that is Karina's first impression of Dawson. It's just him in this huge argument with this woman throwing things at his head. So this is the second time they're meeting, and we're now seeing Karina through another character's eyes. So previously we had Karina in chapter 1. When she met Dawson, it was through her own eyes. Now we're seeing Karina through Dawson's eyes, through another character. A black messenger bag decorated with colorful stars slung over her shoulder. Her dark hair hung in waves across her back, crimson tips swaying as her head bobbed to whatever played in her headphones. Cities and dates were listed down her shirt with a logo near the bottom. Even loose-fitting sweatpants couldn't hide that ass. My fingers twitched. Wasn't campus orientation this afternoon? Large gray eyes met mine. The elevator doors opened. Coming? She double-tapped the right ear before pressing into the back corner. Sorry about the other day. I pushed the button for the 8th floor. I'm normally not like that. It's none of my business. She fidgeted with an enamel pin on the strap of her bag. Well-behaved women rarely make history. Various pins and buttons decorated the whole strap. Life begins after coffee under a latte with an animated face. 5 cats in shades of blue, pink, and white holding a banner that said, "Trans rights are human rights." A rainbow infinity and symbol with hashtag actually autistic beneath. Are you drunk? 2 checkboxes with the words yes and no and a red X scrawled outside both. Something floral tickled my nose. She cleared her throat and tapped a button higher up. If you're close enough to read this, you're violating my personal space. I laughed and took a step back. What's your name? That's none of your business. I leaned against the wall. Rosewater, perhaps. I'd like to make it my business. I wouldn't. With a hint of lilac. Why? The toe of her shoe tapped the floor. Because I'm not interested. But everyone's interested. Her eye caught mine. Megan wasn't. Megan was the woman who was throwing the things at his head. The doors swung wide. She adjusted her bag and marched down the hall. I braced myself in the doorway. How can I get your name? She turned and walked backwards down the hall. It's rude not to introduce yourself first. Dawson, I said. You? She gave an exaggerated shrug. Good luck. Is that an open challenge? She bit her bottom lip and turned back around. Good night, Dawson. This is an example of a more natural character description. I'm not saying it's the best character description. It's better than saying, and so had brown hair and blue eyes and was wearing XYZ. Or having your character look in the mirror and be like, I looked in the mirror and then brushed my blonde hair and lined my blue eyes with whatever liner, and then I, put on whatever clothing. I feel like the trope and the stereotype is to have your character look in the mirror, and so if you can get characterization from your character through a different medium, that is always the best. It's always the hardest in first-person POV, I feel, because it's so hard to have your character sit and describe themselves. But I will say you can do that through your other characters. So here, what we're doing is Dawson is noticing her, and you can follow his eyes where he's going. If you think of someone noticing someone, it's a more natural progression where they would start at the top of someone's head or in their head vicinity and then slowly travel down. And then he comments on large gray eyes, and you get her fidgeting with the enamel pin on her strap. And so his eyes are drawn to her fidgeting, which then makes him notice the enamel straps. He goes down not all of her enamel pins, but several of them are essentially my window into, at a glance, Karina's character, because they say a lot without anyone saying anything about it. So you get the well-behaved women rarely make history, which kind of denotes a bit more liberal feminist views, probably. And of course, her special interest is history, so she is going to university and studying different history. Life begins after coffee, so she obviously is a coffee drinker. The 5 cats with the trans rights are human rights. She's obviously an ally. The rainbow infinity symbol with the hashtag actually autistic, so she has autism. I would assume from that she has autism. I don't know how other people would interpret that. The are you drunk with the 2 check boxes and the X scrawled outside. It's saying some stuff without saying some stuff, right? Like, she's clearly been around the block on that avenue. And then when he leans in and gets a bit closer, because with his interest, he's slowly going down all of the pins and leaning in, she leads his eyes up to an enamel pin further up and taps it. And then he gets this, if you're close enough to read this, you're violating my personal space. So this is, again, her personal space is very valuable to her. And you get this sort of back and forth banter of where he wants to know who she is, and she is not really expressing much interest. She makes that quip of Megan wasn't interested in him, so obviously not everyone is interested. And then it comes out that, it's rude not to introduce yourself first. So he introduces himself, and she still doesn't give her name. She says instead, good luck. So when he asks if it's an open challenge, she doesn't say no. She just says, good night, Dawson, and specifically uses his name, implying that she's interested without specifically overtly saying she's interested. She's being a bit flirty, a bit mysterious here, which obviously is piquing Dawson's interest, and especially with the enamel pins. That, for me, was a way to give insight into her as a character and as a person, and a little bit about her personality and her likes and dislikes in a bit more creative of a way. Obviously, I'm not saying do this to characterize whoever your character is, but it's just one way that I found was interesting and fun. So I guess that's what I'm saying. You can make it interesting and fun. You don't have to necessarily do it one specific way. Have fun with it. Think of new and fun and creative ways of how you could describe your character, or how your character interacting with their environment could have their description told. And then the other one I have giving a bit more of who your character is through their actions and through their dialogue. And through specifically the exchange with the other character. You get an eye and a window into who this character is. So this is from the perspective of Lainey. She, to give context, has been deployed specifically to this new compound. She is meeting her superior officer for the first time. This is her giving a first impression. This is the first impression to this character, and this is a first impression to the reader. The warrior in charge leaned back in his chair, feet propped up on the desk. His dark, unkempt hair swooped across his face in layers, partially obscuring his forehead. It came to a slight curl at the nape of his neck. I shoved his feet off and plopped my ass in their place. "You're Kaio?" "Please, have a seat," he said. "This is a nice desk." I crossed my legs and leaned back. "I think I'll make it mine." His blue eyes pierced me. "I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you're Lainey." I clapped. "You know, you're kind of cute." "They warned me about your complete disregard for authority, but," he leaned forward in his chair, "this is actually impressive." "Then you should also know I don't take orders." I hopped off the desk and walked around his chair, trailing a finger across his chest. "What are you hiding under that armor?" He tilted his head towards me, and his eyes flashed a shade brighter. "I'll advise you to watch yourself." "Temnes, I'm so scared," I mocked. Kaio moved with a speed I hadn't expected. "We're gonna establish this once, so listen carefully." He grabbed a fistful of hair at the back of my neck and yanked hard, knocking me off balance. "Do I have your attention?" He tightened his grip when I didn't respond. "Yes, sir." "Yes, sir," I choked out. "I don't give two shits what they let you get away with before this assignment. I'm your superior here." He turned my head so I was forced to look at him. "You don't have to like it, but you will respect it. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, sir." He shoved me and I stumbled into the wall. "Get settled." He sat back down at his desk. "We'll convene at 0900 hours tomorrow to discuss exactly what's going on here and what needs to be done about it." So we obviously get that Lainey is very irreverent. Kaio remarks that he was warned about her complete disregard for authority, but you see it also in her actions even before he says that. When she shoves his feet off of the desk and plops her ass on it, instead of taking a seat in the chair across from his desk. The way that she says, "This is a nice desk, I think I'll make it mine." Very irreverent, very... So essentially all of her character actions are telling me who she is as a character without anyone describing or expositioning to me what kind of person she is. Immediately, I am getting a very clear picture of the kind of person she is in the way that she's interacting with Kaio and in the way she's interacting with her surroundings. And even when he advises her to watch herself, she responds with mocking him. She is very not scared of him. She does not care what he thinks. She does not care to follow what he says. He surprises her by reacting in a way that she doesn't expect. And this sets up their relationship for later on because he continuously reacts in ways that she doesn't expect. But you get the sense that once Kaio actually takes charge, she complies at least to get him off her back. And he even says, "You don't have to like it, but you will respect it." And she stops mocking and she stops being irreverent and just simply responds, "Yes, sir." So while she might not like it, she is now showing respect. And I feel like that's all I really had to say on those things. character creation, there's character voice, there is 2 different ways to, I guess it's a way to characterize your character from somebody else looking at them, and a way to characterize your character through character action. And I do feel in the Dawson Karina, you still get a little bit of character through their dialogue. Just the fact that Dawson would say, but everyone's interested. It's kind of arrogant, and it gives you the impression that he's not used to being told no. He's used to being surrounded by yes men. So even in that small dialogue piece, 3 words, you get so much insight into his character and his personality and the people that surround him in his life. Sound off in the comments below. Was this helpful? Did you like it? Did you learn something new? Do you have anything to add? Did I miss anything? Would you like me to talk more about a specific aspect of this? Please do let me know. I can try and find more examples even of different ways to describe a character without defaulting to the more tropey ways that you sometimes see in writing. And yeah, that is all that Editing Alley has to say on that topic. I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye. Thank you to everyone on my Patreon. Your support means so much to me, and I couldn't do this without you.